DeSanto Propane is 4 generations strong as a trustworthy, family-owned business with unmatched customer service. Go online at DeSantoPropane.com for more info or call toll-free at 1-800-752-4574 today. Since 1937, the difference has been DeSanto Propane.
Everybody, welcome into this week's edition, Monday, August 17th of Concrete Jungle, New York Baseball Podcast here on FingerLakes1.com. A little in-studio action for everybody today. Paul Russo and Kyle Evans here with you. Kyle, good to see you. A lot to kind of get into here. The Yankees is kind of, I think the worry that I had last week kind of came to fruition a little bit for results of the week. And for the Mets, they're not one of the hottest teams in baseball all of a sudden, to a degree. So a lot to get to, but good to see you, Kyle. Yeah, let's just kind of jump right into it. I had this fear kind of coming out of the podcast last week for the Yankees of, I had a hunch that they probably were going to be like a 500 type week in it, and it kind of was. It's easy for us to kind of always go back to the nearest series, but again, just the continued struggles on offense really reared its head in Toronto. I didn't think the Blue Jays played like highly better than the Yankees did, but like again, just like their hitting came up more important. Look, it's tough. It's really tough, right? I mean, you know this. Like, when you're, like, the one thing we talk about with the Yankees consistently, right, is their pitching is not the issue in the grand scheme of it. And the tough part is, right, just when you have the moments where baseball is going to baseball, right? Like, Brent Hedrick, who has been great all year, has one of his 2, like, blemishes all year happen in Toronto, right? And it's a game where more than likely the Yankees were trending to lose 2-1 anyway. So what's a 4-1 loss at that point in that sense, right? But like, it's just one of those things where, the Yankees and their offense, they really need to figure something out sooner than later here.
Well, the crazy part is we're usually talking about a 1 or 2 week sample size when we talk about like an offense in baseball struggling. But the problem is this has been, well into the 2-month range. And we saw it all week, literally. Like, it's actually kind of amazing that when you think that they even went 500, 3-3, and ended up putting up 10 runs on the Mariners, but then you look at the box score, in the 7th inning, it was a 1-run game. And that seems to be the case every night. It's almost like the same game script. The Yankees even do score first. They scored first in all 3 games in Toronto. And they just don't seem to figure out how to string together more than that. And like I said, it's been an ongoing issue. They've scored 2 runs or fewer in 24 of their last 53 games. So nearly half of their last 53 games, they've put up 2 runs on the board or less. Their pitchers have to be near perfect every night. And in fact, some of them have been. Some of them have pitched shutouts, and they've still gone on to lose late innings. We saw Max Fried, Garrett Cole all have starts wasted. Ryan Weathers even deserved more than he got yesterday. The bullpen, imagine coming into the game out of the Yankees bullpen right now, or even for the last month or two, and knowing that if you make one mistake, it's pretty much it with how bad this offense has been.
Yeah, which is not fair to them. Like I mentioned, right? Hedrick's been just on one, and I know, he didn't get the loss on Saturday technically, right? But like it came off his hand, and it's like I said, it's one of his 2 blemishes all year, like in the grand scheme of it, right? Like, and it's just, like, what are you going to do? And yeah, I mean, I know you ran down the numbers, but again, it's like looking at it from just even the last week, right? 4, 10, 0, 1, 1, 4. Like it's just mind boggling. And I think it just shows again, just like how needed some of these guys who are hurt are just back in the lineup or something, right? Just to shake things up. And I know, like, yesterday was like they put Caballero at second and sat Jazz, and I'm gonna have to edit that. And like they're talking on the broadcast about how Boone's just like, no, Jazz will back, and it's just like, why is Aaron Boone just afraid to try something at this point? Like we it's beating a dead horse, frankly, right at this point. Like we talked about it, not to go back to this but like we talked about with Volpe, before he got sent down for Lombard and everything like that. Like, why is he just afraid to try something? And I don't get it at this point. Like, I get it. Jazz's defense this year has been really good in the grand scheme of it. But when you have two guys at minimum, and I'm being really selective here by saying two guys, but when you have two guys who their only value right now to the team is essentially their glove, you're going to have to make decisions, in my mind, right? And I don't mean to single out McMahon in that way either, but like, even then, like, weirdly, like, McMahon seems to at least be swinging a better bat recently than even Jazz. So it's like, what are we doing sometimes out there?
Yeah, and I thought it was kind of funny that they were facing an AL Cy Young candidate yesterday, Dylan Cease, and they take I should say Aaron Boone, moves Ben Rice up to the leadoff spot, and you could make an argument that Ben Rice, since the All-Star break, since the home run derby, has been one of the Yankees' worst hitters. I mean, we're talking.
He's one of the worst hitters in baseball.
Yeah, we're talking 17 for 106 since the All-Star break. The OPS has dropped hundreds of points since the All-Star break. And then he throws him, like I said, in the leadoff spot. And yes, we saw him hit the go-ahead two-run home run in the 10th inning. But remember, if there wasn't extra innings, you were going to look at the box score and see another 0 for 4 day from Ben Rice. He finished 1 for 5. His swing and miss has gone up significantly again. And then you look at Elliot Ramos, who had been 0 for 24 and 2 for 32 as a Yankee, and he continues every single day to put him in the 3 spot. He got a double his first at bat to snap the skid, but then what did he do after that? Nothing. Luis Garcia Jr. has had some big moments early on in his career, but if you look at the last week and a half, he's had a sacrifice fly or two, but he isn't going crazy like they really need him to. And you mentioned Ryan McMahon. He's actually been one of their better hitters, hitting about 255 in the last 25 games. And then Austin Wells is actually getting on base a little more. So you just look at guys that have been like some of the worst players on the teams offensively, actually like turning the corner a bit. But the main guys that you would expect, like the Jazz Chisholm Jr., the Ben Rice, I mean, they've been horrible. Like, no, there's no other way around it. And I did want to throw this stat out before I forget. I should have mentioned this earlier. This just goes to show you how bad the offense is. So Cam Schlittler is obviously probably going to be the AL Cy Young winner, right? He has the best ERA in the American League. Well, the Yankees are 14-11 when Cam Schlittler starts a game this season. 14-11. The guy that's going to win the AL Cy Young. And on top of that, they've lost 4 straight games with him on the mound starting a game. I mean, it's almost like mind-blowing that he could go out there, shut out 7 innings, 1-run ball, and he's consistently getting a loss or the team's losing and starts by him, and he's going to go win the Cy Young. I don't think I've ever seen that before.
Yeah, I mean, the only one that kind of strikes me, and this is not so much on the decision side of things wholly, but it's like Felix Hernandez with the Mariners back in the day where you couldn't doubt his greatness that year. It was just like the team around him was just miserable with run support, and it's it's essentially the same thing, obviously.
Maybe Paul Skeens you could throw in that last year where it seemed like they had a bad team record in his starts, but yeah, I mean, imagine how Cam Schlittler feels like, and then going into the game, you're like, oh wow, Cam Schlittler's starting. We should feel good about today. And in reality, I don't think they do because they don't win with him.
And I think the tough part too is he's had a rough couple starts now back to back, which had to be expected at some point, right, in a sophomore campaign. So I think a lot of fans, I even heard it on the broadcast, like Michael K brought up, where it's like, well, he hasn't been the same since that Phillies start. I'm like, sure, but like, why you're underselling more or less what the broader issue is for Schlittler this year, and that's just the lack of support. And that's the case with every pitcher at this point on the Yankees, right? Like you brought up yesterday, like it's funny. I was with a friend of mine yesterday for a little bit who was a Blue Jays fan. He goes like, "Oh, Ryan Weathers." Like, I'm like, I don't think you realize like Ryan Weathers has actually been like really good as of late again. Like, like you can't trust some of that on paper number because of what's been happening around them. Like, you just can't. And like Weathers again goes into the seventh yesterday and does really well. And it just, it's pretty brutal too that I know he went from zero to hero within it, but like it's brutal that Ben Rice was kind of the catalyst of how the Blue Jays got that rally started in the ninth inning. Um, well, maybe not fully, right? Bednar walked the first guy, but like, either way, just one of those things where it's brutal at the end of the day. Yeah, we should get into some of the news and notes here for the Yankees overall. Rodon's still kind of meandering through his rehab starts. Been with Somerset now for a few days. Got an update on Bellinger. He'll be rehabbing at the start of the end of the week this week after Aaron Boone misspoke pregame yesterday. Which is fine, I guess, in the grand scheme of it, but I think you go from, even if like say the team maybe didn't know, I think it's kind of brutal. You butchered it by a few days. You know what I mean? Um, just one of those things where it is what it is. Kind of sounds like Aaron Judge is progressing along pretty good, but um, they really need. I know the obvious statement's Judge, but like I know he was struggling there before he got hurt, but like man, even getting Bellinger's bat back, at least having him in the lineup, I would hope would shake some things up here sooner than later, right? Whenever he gets back.
Yeah, defensively too. I mean, you look at Elliot Ramos yesterday, and I think it was the ninth inning actually.
Mm-hmm.
Um, he's just not a good outfielder. You can tell he doesn't take the right routes to the
Mm-hmm.
ball. Um, it seems like he's just not comfortable out there, and Bellinger is literally a gold glover out there.
Yeah.
So defensively, you look at Bellinger being back is huge. And then offensively, for whatever reason, Bellinger just hits really well at Yankee Stadium and not so good on the road. But at this point, with how bad the offense is, I think you would take Bellinger's bat in any scenario.
Yeah.
And, um, the fact that he's going to be back, obviously, before Stanton and Judge is huge. And I still think there is a chance, though. For a while, I wasn't convinced, but I think we will see Stanton, honestly.
Mm-hmm.
And Judge, I think, is just going to be literally the last couple weeks of the season, which is not going to be ideal because you'd like him to have a little bit of a runway to kind of get back in form. But I know Aaron Judge is going to be a big deal for just his presence in the lineup and helping guys in front of him and behind him. But I'm just not so sure we should just be expecting that MVP Aaron Judge to just show right up.
No.
Um,
No.
and like we've mentioned too, even when he started some seasons in April and the end of March, he's sometimes come out of the gate very slowly, and it's taken weeks. And he's not going to have weeks probably building up to the playoffs. So that is kind of scary, but that should at least help Ben Rice with him getting back in the lineup because they are pitching Ben Rice differently, and Ben Rice is definitely not as comfortable with no protection.
Yeah. Yeah, and just looking quickly here because of the way the minor league stuff breaks down, but Scranton's a game and a half back right now in the International League. So, not that it factors in the same way it used to back in the day, but like that's going to be a team that's in the thrust of their own playoff push at that point in the year two. And, um, not to be the bearer of bad news, but they'll be the only minor league team left that the Yankees playing at that point, no matter what, the way the schedules break out now at this point. So, who knows? Who knows what we'll see there? So the Yankees here coming up this week, off day today on Monday, at Baltimore for 3, and then back at home against Toronto for 3 over the weekend. Man, Kyle, I hate rinse and repeat from last week for me. Until I see them consistently beat Toronto, I have a tough time believing they're going to get a series against them at this point. It doesn't matter what roster's out there for Toronto at this point. Charles McAdoo could just shoot another 4 RBI day, and make the Blue Jays win. So, I have better faith, obviously, against Baltimore at this point. I know Baltimore historically, again, of recent years, has kind of played the Yankees fairly tough-ish, but like they're kind of outside of Pete Alonso at this point, kind of in the weeds. So, um, yeah, I mean, I just unfortunately view this as another 500 week for the Yankees, and part of this too that we didn't really fully touch on, right, is the fact that like Boston and Tampa Bay did not have great weeks last week either, and so it's like the Yankees are just, for lack of better terms, stuck in neutral for where they're at, and you hope that they can turn it around fully this week, but I just don't see it.
Yeah, I'll go like a 500 week, 3-3 again. I think they'll lose the series to the Blue Jays and win the series against the Orioles, and it's not good enough at this time of the year. And um, the AL East is pretty much probably over. They do play the Rays again, but if they have like a 500 week, I'll officially say like the division's done.
Yeah.
They're gonna obviously be a wild card team probably. It just matters, are they gonna get home field or not over Boston? And Boston's lost 7 of 9, so they're starting to go on a 2 week stretch of not good baseball.
Hmm.
So we'll see what happens with them if they come back around.
Yeah. All right. Over to Metland. 4-2 on the week last week. Sure, you lose the series to Atlanta, but you sweep Washington at home over the weekend. And this team, man, they're kind of catching a little bit of steam here. Like I said last week, I don't think we're going to see something historical happen by any means here. But I go back to it. I did watch a lot of this series over the weekend. I think it kind of helps that locally here with Rochester being Washington's affiliate, there are guys on that team I wanted to kind of see how they did against a big league roster. But I was again left really impressed by the Mets, and like hats off. I'm gonna again start with something that happened in the immediacy, but yesterday, but like they're still ramping Christian Scott back up, right? He's missed essentially almost 2 full years, give or take, because of injury and stuff like that. And man, if he didn't look kind of what he's been billed to be as a prospect yesterday in a lot of ways against Washington, I've been left really impressed again by these young guys, man. Whether like Carson Binge again yesterday, over the weekend had a really good weekend. AJ Ewing did really well, I thought, on defense and stuff like that. But like even then, like the guys who kind of were the first wave of this, like Brett Beatty, guys like that, Alvarez. It just some of these guys are finally getting, I'd say, some full playing time, and they're kind of running with it. On top of, like we mentioned last week, the veterans are finally coming around a little bit here. Like Bo Bichette had a big triple late in the game for the Mets again yesterday. Like the pitching has been pretty spot on. Like who'd have thought that they were kind of wondering what they're going to do with Kodai Senga, right? And he's, mind you, the sample size is very small, but it's like high leverage bullpen spot appears to be kind of Kodai Senga's lane right now. Like it's one of those things where, man, I I don't know necessarily if the firing and the culture thing is all that much playing a factor, but like Andy Green at the moment appears to be just plugging some of the right buttons coming out of the trade deadline now a couple weeks ago, and the Mets are playing, frankly, the best baseball we've seen them play all year the past couple weeks. It's been really awesome to see.
Yeah, I mean they've won 9 of their last 12 games, and it really to me comes down to offense. They were kind of like the Yankees in the beginning of the year, or I shouldn't even just say the beginning of the year, for months into the season. They just couldn't score runs. A lot of 1-2 runs scored in games, and now you look at the young guys that are just getting more opportunities to play, are producing. Carson Benj has been unbelievable. Lindor is actually coming up with timely hits, some game-tying home runs, some walk-offs. It just looks like the team that we thought they would be, but not the same roster. We expected this team to be winning series the way they have in the last several weeks. We expected this team to be consistent and just look like a good baseball team, and that's what they look like right now. Remember a few weeks, I think it was like in June, where they were just one of the worst defensive teams too. They had 4 or 5 errors in a game, and you just don't even see that anymore. They're playing clean baseball, and I mentioned, I think last week, if they just start stringing together winning weeks, they'll eventually get down to like the 10 game under 500 mark and start climbing their way closer and closer. And they're doing that. At one point, they were 19 games below 500. And what are they, like 11 now?
Mm.
So they're just they got to keep playing for each other and just playing for their futures. And I guess you'll never know what will happen.
Yeah, I mean, I think the perfect. I know I mentioned these guys already, but like, I think the perfect encapsulation of this is post All-Star break. Carson Bench, 305 average. Bo Bichette, 304 average.
Yeah.
Right, and mind you, the Mets don't have a ton of qualified guys to fit within that range, but they kind of fit the perfect thing of what I'm talking about, where it's like these guys are finally plugging and they're going, and there's consistency, and it's like we're saying, it's kind of what we thought was going to be all year for them, and just hasn't until like right now. Um, yeah, like I said, it's going to take a lot at this point still, to be fair, um, for the Mets to make a run or anything like that. And I'm trying to get the standings pulled up here, and they just don't want to cooperate.
Yeah, they're 11 out.
Yeah.
But if they could somehow, chop that in half and, 3 weeks left of the season, somehow just have their name at the end of the wild card list would I think go a long way considering where they were at one point.
Yeah. And look, it's tough, right? Because they're still in the basement of the NL East, but like, it's one of those things where, you know, when we were here 3 weeks ago, when we were talking about them being a full 20 games under 500 at that point, 22, I think to be exact. Like, it was just not great. And the fact that now they're kind of staring down the barrel of the way they've been playing, like getting to like 70 wins, 70 plus, like, you gotta feel marginally decent. And look, I get it. It's tough. I hate viewing it from the lens that I'm doing so right now. But like, you have to feel a little bit better about it than you did like a month ago. Like, at least these guys you're hoping to have around next year are showing like they want to be in Queens, right? And like I said, it's tough. I hate viewing from the prism of like, well, 2027, even though, that's a much different discussion, but like, whatever that next season may be, I get it. It's tough to view it from that prism, right? But like, this is a team that has now at least gotten ahead of a few teams now in the standings, like you mentioned, right, Kyle, on the wild card side of things. And like we're saying, like, I hate, we're being the dead horse here. It's going to take a lot to to even remotely sniff it. But like, look, sky's the limit, man. We have seen crazy stuff happen before. I don't think it's happening, but like, if you, like I said, if they can for sure lock in, say like that I'm gonna say like maybe a 72-ish win season, like they're on track for that right now, the way they've been playing the past couple weeks. Like, anything's possible. And like, look, like they have in the NL, they're tied for the second best record in the last 10 at 7-3. They're tied with St. Louis in that, and they only trail the San Diego Padres at 8-2 in the last 10. And there are a lot worse off teams in better positions than them that have been playing worse, right? Like, you can say what you want, but like Atlanta's been playing 500 ball, Milwaukee's been playing 500 ball, the Dodgers have been playing 500 ball. Like, and I mentioned that they're the division leaders, Paul. Like, yeah, I get it, but like, if you're in the Mets, this is what we talked about technically a month and a half, 2 months ago, right? Is the fact that like at this point, you know what you have, like, figure stuff out. Like, allow the young kids to go out there and play, mixing in with the vets that you know you will plan on having stick around for years to come. And crazy, you allow them to build a little bit of chemistry here, and look what's happening. Like, it's one of those things that you love to see in baseball.
And if you really look at it, I mean, like they're only 3 wins behind the Reds right now.
Yeah.
The Nationals 4 wins behind them, 5 behind the Pirates. Like, it's not crazy. Like they could jump a few more spots, is what I'm saying, and they could make it look better than what it was. They were literally like 1 game at one point above the Rockies. In fact, and then I think they dropped to the worst team in the National League, and it feels different. You wish they would have turned the corner sooner, although the trade deadline still would have hit, so there still would have been movement. But this is just the team that you expected, and I think the fans at least got to be, of course, they're not going to be all the way happy, but just somewhat pleased that their team didn't just totally quit. They're still fighting and playing good baseball.
Yeah. And I think that's half the battle at this point, right? Is you don't want that to creep in. late in the season, right? You still, I get like it's tough, but like you don't want that to be something where it's like, because I think that's more indicative of like I said, the culture, and then maybe even the player itself and stuff like that. So, all right, the week ahead for the Mets though gets a little bit tricky still, but it appears for the Mets it's not a big deal, right? 3 against the Padres starting tonight, off day on Thursday, then at Chicago and against the White Sox over the weekend. And I don't know. I still think the Mets ride the momentum. I do think they probably dropped the series in similar fashion like they did against the Braves to the Padres, but I like their chance against the White Sox. I think it's as good as the last week necessarily? No, but like I think they probably come out of this 3-3 on the week and feel I think pretty decent still overall. Although I guess there are scenarios this week where I could see it going either side of that. So just kind of like one of those things where I think it could happen, but either way, I think if you're the Mets right now, as long as everybody's still playing and looking good, I think the results probably don't fully matter as much. But like, I could see this week playing out any of the 3 ways, frankly, for them.
And I never thought I would say this, but I think they're going to go 4-2. I think they're going to win both series.
All right.
The Padres have won 8 of 10. They're playing a lot better than they were. But just something tells me, just the way they've been swinging it offensively, that they're going to put up enough runs to win these series. And the White Sox have also started heating up again. But I mean, the Mets are hot too. So it's really hot. They're all hot teams, all 3 teams. So we'll see what happens. But I expect to come back here next week and it being another winning week, which would be well, would it be? Yeah, their 3rd straight.
Mm-hmm.
Which I don't think we would. I mean, they couldn't even do 1 week when we used to jump on here. It was a losing week every week. Now that they could have 3 straight winning weeks if they have a good week this week.
Yeah. So, hey, look at that. Before we go, did want to mention quick here the minor league teams here locally. Syracuse, really in the bottom half of the standings again here, second half. And Rochester, statistically, they're kind of at least in the upper third, but it's because, again, this International League this year is pretty tight all the way through. They're 2 games back of the leader, Indianapolis, but they're 5 positions back because there's teams just everywhere. Like Scranton's a game and a half back, but they're tied for 3rd. Like it's one of those things where it's a tight deal, and especially for Rochester right now, they continue to win with a lot of like roster turnover. I don't think that's been talked about a ton right now, but because of the way things have broken out for Washington now in the second half of the year, like they're kind of giving guys different chances, right? And they're kind of getting guys going back and forth a little bit right now, and man, new kudos to the staff in Rochester. They're handling everything with pretty good grace, and they're putting themselves in position again here to down the stretch to try and lock into the International League playoff series.
Yeah, my only comment here is I can't believe the number 1 team is only 8 games over 500.
Yeah.
And then I just looked at the last 10. How has Scranton lost 8 of 10 and still in first place?
Scranton came out hot to start the second half.
Like, wow. And by the way, just for the record, I don't actually look at these standings until we're on here, so that's why I am so caught off guard.
Yeah.
And then you look at their against 500 teams, they're 12 and 13.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I'm just shocked that Scranton's at the top of the league, and I guess I'm also shocked that Rochester is actually still being pretty competitive.
Yeah. Yeah, the interesting part too here is Memphis, who won the first half, and they're locked into that playoff series, is 5th from last. So
Wow.
5 games under 500. So hey, the International League's popping off right now. So.
Oh, and Rochester has the best run differential.
Yes.
Wow.
Yeah. 7-3. I think that is they're tied for the best record the past 10. Yeah. So hey, things are good. Things are red hot for the Red Wings still. So good to see. All right. I think that does it for this week, Kyle. So we'll be back at it again next week, everybody. Yeah, at that point, let's see, that puts us at 24 and then another week until Labor Day. So we don't have to worry about anything housekeeping wise for a couple weeks yet. So appreciate everybody for listening in and tuning in this week here on Concrete Jungle. You can find Concrete Jungle here on fingerlakes1.com, the FO1 YouTube channel, and the audio only feed on all major podcasting platforms. Appreciate everybody for listening in and tuning in this week, and we'll talk again next week.